Are you ready to hear a story that will give you goosebumps? If you are, hit that like button to boost your courage, share to warn your friends, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any chilling tales from us. Now then, let the story begin. It's been 10 months since I first remember meeting Brandon, but according to the rest of the world, he and I became a couple 3 years ago. It all started after the surgery. When I awoke from my anesthesia-induced sleep, I nodded groggily as the doctor listed common post-operative symptoms, like drowsiness, dizziness, and disorientation. Then, 2 nurses wheeled me down an elevator, through the main lobby, and outside the hospital. Even though I'd arranged for my friend May to pick me up, the car that arrived was not her black sedan, but instead, an unfamiliar silver SUV. The stranger who emerged from it was a tall, well-built man with hazy green eyes and tousled red hair. Panic rushed through me as he squeezed my hand and told me in a firm, deep voice that he was so glad that the operation had been a success, and that he'd be taking good care of me while I recovered. I tried to scream. I tried to explain to the nurses that they were delivering me into the arms of an abductor. But in my weakened state, all I could manage were weak whimpers and incoherent mumbles that the man and nurses dismissed as side effects and temporary confusion as they lifted me into the car. The ignition started. As the hospital faded into the distance, I tried to beg the man to free me. With immense effort, I managed to croak words like please, don't, and stop, but to no avail. If the man heard me, he gave no sign of it. Meanwhile, a sense of absolute exhaustion gradually descended over me. The last thing I remember before darkness overcame me was the man's loving smile and 3 words that haunted the frightening dreams that followed. I love you. When I awoke the next morning, I found myself, to my immense relief, in the familiar location of the bedroom of my townhouse. For a moment, I wrote off what had happened as a dream or a hallucination brought on by my semi-conscious state. Maybe May had picked me up after all. Soon enough, however, the same man stepped into my room. He placed a tray with 2 slices of toast and a small fruit smoothie on a bedside table, and, upon seeing that I was awake, asked me how I was feeling. The scream I uttered left him flustered and pale-faced. "April, what's wrong?" he asked. He knew my name. Get out now," I hollered. "Okay," he said quietly as he backed out of my room. I mustered what energy I had to leap out of bed and lock the door. I found my phone in its usual place atop a dresser. The photo that displayed on the background of the phone screen caused me to drop it. A nauseous feeling ran through me as I picked it up and stared, wide-eyed, at the image of the stranger and me, smiling and holding hands. The sight of an ornate diamond ring on my finger in the picture, one that matched the gold band that he wore, made me dizzy. With trembling hands, I dialed 911. When the police arrived, the man, who identified himself as Brandon Harrison, spoke calmly as the officers interrogated him. Everything he said checked out. He produced a marriage license, and his driver's license listed my home address. He showed the officers the numerous photos of us together that were displayed around the house. I'm just worried about April. She's never been like this before. "Don't listen to him," I begged. "He's lying." "How about you and I go upstairs?" said one of the officers, who proceeded to lead me to my bedroom while her partner stayed with Brandon. When I started to ramble again, she cut me off. "Look, ma'am, please try to see this from my perspective. You're still recovering from a medical procedure, and this man has everything, and I mean everything, to prove that he is, in fact, your husband, and that he lives here with you. You can't be serious. You're not going to leave me alone with this man. Has he hurt you? Threatened you in any way?" "Well, no, but..." My voice drifted off. "But officer, I have friends and family. They'll confirm what I'm telling you." The officers left after my friends and family did the opposite. Every person I contacted swore to the same version of events, that I married Brandon almost a year ago and that we'd been living together as a couple for even longer. My own social media pages were consistent with the happy pictures of us displayed around the house. Post after post reflected us living and traveling together. My phone and text message histories, meanwhile, were filled with corresponding communications. All of it left me absolutely baffled and confounded. I had no idea what to do. I just knew that I did not feel safe having Brandon in the house with me. "It's my house too, you know," he replied when I asked him to leave. But fine, I'll go to a friend's place or a hotel or somewhere else until you figure out whatever is happening to you, if you promise to see a doctor in the meantime. I'm so worried about you. Fine, just go, please. Over the next few days, I met with practitioner after practitioner. Many had records or notes reflecting my marriage to Brandon, such as me mentioning him in response to routine questions, and none could clearly explain what was happening. They all agreed that I exhibited no signs of mental or physical illness that could explain why 3 years of memories of my husband had somehow vanished from my mind. Regardless of what's causing this, said the surgeon who'd performed the operation, whether it's a truly novel side effect of the surgery or a psychological breakdown of some kind, what's unequivocal is that you are, in fact, married to Mr. Harrison and that you've known him for several years. I was sitting on my living room couch, tall glass of red wine in hand, when Brandon called. I hit a decline, took a big gulp of my drink, and leaned my head back against the wall. What the fuck do I do now? I thought. The whole world was telling me something that I knew wasn't true. During a long call with my parents, my mother had insisted that I invite Brandon back, and my father had even implied that I was deliberately lying about losing my memories of him. Logically, the only answer is that somehow everyone else was correct. This man really was my husband, and I was losing my mind, or in denial or something. As much as I felt otherwise, no other explanation was possible. And Brandon wasn't acting maliciously. Instead, he was complying with everything I asked of him, to the point that he was living out of a hotel, despite having the legal right to reside with me here, in a house he apparently co-owned. If it were all some elaborate lie, then what was he gaining from it? I downed another glass of wine and called him back. He answered right away. We talked for hours. He asked about my health and the results of my recent appointments. I asked him about how we met. He related how he'd used his old red pickup truck to pull my car out of a ditch during a blizzard. By coincidence, we'd run into each other at a bar a few weeks later, where I'd insisted on buying him a drink as a token of appreciation. We'd hit it off quickly and made plans together to meet again. Before long, we considered ourselves a couple. He described leaving his apartment to move in with me, proposing to me in a park by the harbor, and planning our small wedding. He told me I'd never been as beautiful as I was when he saw me approach the altar. I don't know what's happening, April, he told me, but I love you with all my heart, and I know we can work through this. We were happy together, and we can be happy together again. I realized I was crying. He sounded so sincere, and I could sense real emotion behind his words. I believe you, I said, but try to imagine what it's like for me, to just be told by everyone that so much of my life happened differently from what I remember. Take your time, he responded. As long as you need. When you're ready to see me again, let me know. I tossed and turned all night. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living a life that wasn't mine, like I'd slipped from one reality to another. One where I didn't belong. Because no matter how patient and understanding Brandon acted, I couldn't change the fact that I didn't feel anything for him. I barely knew him, much less loved him. I thought about the pain he must be feeling for his whole life to just be inexplicably upended one day, and I couldn't help but feel like I was somehow responsible. I decided to call my mother again. Honey, she told me, I would never lie to you, ever, and you know that. So listen to me when I say this. Brandon is your husband, and you need to let him back into your life. An hour later, I called Brandon and told him that I was all right with him moving back in, so long as he stayed in the guest room in the basement. Months passed with us living together like roommates. At first, we handled our own meals, but after a while, we started cooking for each other. Sometimes we'd sit at opposite ends of the couch and watch TV. I asked him questions about our time together, and he supplied me with plenty of stories. The early date during which I'd putted a golf ball so badly that it went spiraling over a fence and onto a nearby highway. The time he'd carried me for nearly half a mile after I injured myself during a jog, and our honeymoon on an Alaskan cruise. We had a natural chemistry, and he often made me laugh. At the end of the night, he'd retire to the pull-out couch downstairs. We took many walks together at a nearby public park. These outings were generally uneventful, except for one occasion when Brandon intervened to stop a crazed woman from harassing me. I'd been giving her dog, a sweet ridgeback who'd run up to me, some scratches and pets, when she started to scream at me. As I backed away from the dog, she made a hostile, guttural sound, and I noticed what looked like narrow streams of blood running down from her eyes as she wailed. She charged at me, but Brandon intervened, shoving her off me and telling her to leave me alone. Another bystander restrained her as we hurried away, and I thanked Brandon for looking out for me. Otherwise, life fell into a mundane routine. We were watching a tense movie once when I realized I'd been gripping Brandon's hand. Afterwards, he told me his back was aching from all the nights he'd spent on the fold-out downstairs. I took a deep breath. I'm being a jerk, keeping the bed all to myself. We should set up a rotation in terms of who stays there and who is in the basement. That's not what I meant, he replied. I mean, yeah, the bed's more comfortable, but I miss going to sleep with you. I'm sorry, Brandon. He continued. I have nightmares sometimes. In them, you're living your life without me. I try to talk to you, but it's like I'm a ghost and you can't hear me or see me. When I wake up, I'm covered in sweat. You used to be there to comfort me, but now I'm all alone down in the dark basement. I miss you. Brandon, I'm just not there yet. He sighed, okay. I finally asked him a question I'd been holding back for weeks. Do you think I'm lying about not remembering you? No, he responded abruptly. Not at all. I don't know what it is. If it was some fluke side effect of the surgery or some kind of undiagnosed condition, but I know that you would never lie about something like this. I wouldn't have married you if I didn't trust you completely. As much as I appreciated his words, the exchange left me feeling terrible. We were a married couple after all. I had to assume that we'd done plenty of things together. But now, I didn't even want to fall asleep in the same room as him. The truth was that I continued to feel no meaningful attraction towards Brandon. I'd developed an affection for him, sure. He seemed polite, self-sacrificing, and protective of me. Perhaps he was good-looking too, in an objective sense. But he sparked no romantic interest in me. It made me feel awful, given how kind and patient he was being to me. Maybe that would change with time. Maybe, eventually, I'd feel towards him the way I must have in the photos displayed around the house of us kissing or embracing. But what if that never happened? I couldn't stay married to someone I didn't love, no matter how good he was to me. Still, I figured the least I could do was return some of the kindness he'd shown me by switching out our rooms as I'd offered. I wanted it to be a surprise for him. After he left for work the next morning, I set about moving the belongings he'd brought to the basement, back up to the bedroom. I decided to wash the sheets and pillowcase he'd been using as well. When I lifted his pillow, I noticed a slight bulge in fabric where the mattress met the back of the couch. Reaching my hand under the fabric and up the backrest, I felt something solid. I gripped it and slowly pulled it out. It was an old, tattered book. A pattern was infused into its otherwise blank mahogany leather cover. A golden triangle stood in its center. 3 charcoal ovals lay over it, each intersecting with one of the triangle's sides. At the top, just above the triangle's pyramid tip, was a half circle. Tiny, unrecognizable characters lined its thin, sepia perimeter. Its aged, browned pages were of uneven sizes. Curious about their contents, I tried opening the book, only to discover that it was locked by a narrow metal clasp with a tiny keyhole. I didn't know what to make of it. I couldn't find the key for it, and when I looked online, I couldn't identify anything that matched the pattern on the cover. It could just be something as innocuous as a vintage private diary or a family heirloom. But the way Brandon had tucked it out of sight disturbed me. Clearly, he didn't want me to find it, and this was the first time, to my knowledge, that he'd tried to hide something from me. For the moment, I elected to leave the book where I'd found it and not mention it to Brandon while I gathered more information. I had a friend who might be able to help me after all. I took a picture of the cover, texted it to May, and carefully put the book back in its place. I pulled up to the house that May, her boyfriend Casey, and her roommate Olivia rented half of soon after. She led me away from the closed door to Olivia's room, through the kitchen, and down the short hallway to where she and Casey, who was at work, stayed. As we sat together on her bed, I noticed that May's once small collection of cacti had expanded into an indoor garden that filled at least a third of the room. I still name them after people, you know, she said with a smirk. She pointed to a potted cactus by her desk. Guess what I call that one? I don't know. April? No, silly, she said with a laugh. It wouldn't feel right naming one after you. This one's Brandon. What? Compared to the cacti and succulents around it, Brandon was smaller in size. Yet, on a closer look, I discerned that the clusters of spines that covered it appeared particularly long and jagged. "You're ridiculous, May," she giggled. "That's what people keep telling me. But anyway, I assume you're here about that picture you sent me?" I started to explain how I'd found it hidden away in the couch Brandon had been sleeping on when May interrupted me. "Wait, so you still don't remember him?" I nodded. I hated the concerned expression on May's face. It was the same look of pity I'd seen on so many people. "And let me guess, your current theory is that this book has something to do with you forgetting all about Brandon?" "I know how it sounds, May. I just don't know what else to think. You used to be obsessed with the occult, and I thought maybe you'd recognize the symbols on the front." I felt my face grow red with embarrassment as I realized how unhinged I must have been sounding. May put her arm around me. "April, I'm glad you came to me. Don't ever be afraid to talk to me, okay? Olivia and I have both seen some strange things ourselves. Things that most people think are impossible, so believe me, I'm not dismissing your theory offhand. But I don't recognize the image you sent me, and I turned up nothing when I researched it this morning. My best guess is that it's just a fancy diary of some kind, nothing more. We talked for a while about other subjects. The local band Casey played drums in, Olivia's ongoing lawsuit against her former employer, and their landlord's efforts to find them all in breach of the contract that kept their rent at the same level since 2017. And I felt better the longer we chatted. I was about to leave when May stopped me. "Wait," she croaked in a strangely pained, hollow voice. "Yes?" May got to her feet and moved slowly toward her desk. Her steps were shaky and erratic, like her body was navigating contradictory commands. She removed a small business card from a drawer and tossed it in my direction. It flew past me and landed on the ground. As I turned to pick it up, I heard a tumbling sound, followed by a sharp cry of pain. When I looked back, May's hand was covered in blood. To my shock, I realized it was stuck in a tight grip around Cactus Brandon, with dozens of its needles protruding all the way through her palm and out the other side of her hand. "What the hell?" I shrieked. "May, let me help!" Her face had grown pale, and her expression was understandably agonized. 911, call now! Fuck, this hurts! Olivia and I followed the instructions the 911 operator gave us as we waited for assistance. When paramedics arrived, May repeated to them what she told us, that she'd slipped and fallen, and when she tried to catch herself, her hand had landed on the cactus. As they carted her away for treatment, I examined the card May had thrown at me. It displayed a name and an address. Monsieur Herman's Occult Artifacts, 6681 Cheshire Lane. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know what to make of a lot of things. But once Olivia assured me I didn't need to wait at the hospital with her, I decided to follow this lead to its end. Rainfall pounded at my umbrella as I hurried from my car to the door of 6681 Cheshire Lane. The store inside was lit primarily by scented candles that smelled vaguely of black cherry. Its shelves were lined with books with titles like Encyclopedia of Demonology or Dark Magic and Incantations, separated by prop skulls and Baphomet statues. I came across a bald man placing a book titled Crafting with Human Skin on a top shelf. "Excuse me," I asked, "do you work here?" "Yes, ma'am," he responded earnestly. "How can I help you?" There's a symbol, a pattern, that I saw. I have a picture of it. I'm wondering if you might know what it means." "Certainly, I'm more than happy to take a look." I opened the picture I'd taken and handed him my phone. "Oh," he said as he examined it. He looked at me, then back at the image. "Well?" I asked. To my surprise, he chuckled. "It's meaningless. There's a craftsman out of San Antonio who makes blank notebooks with this cover and sells them online. It's vaguely meant to recall some pagan symbols, but it doesn't have any particular meaning. Anything else I can do for you?" "No," I said, a mix of puzzlement and relief running through me. "I think not." Tilda, I didn't mention the day's events to Brandon. After we switched beds that night, I noticed that the book had disappeared from the couch downstairs. I decided it was likely just a diary Brandon wished to keep private and decided not to press him on it. May left the hospital before long, albeit with an array of bandages around her hand. When I mentioned Monsieur Herman's Occult Artifacts, she indicated that she'd been there plenty of times before but insisted that she didn't remember giving me a card. Over the next few weeks, the episode slipped from my mind. Brandon continued to be kind and supportive, even giving me rides to and from work when my car needed minor repairs. I began to feel even closer and more comfortable around him. One Friday night, he prepared a fancy candlelight dinner. "It's the anniversary of when we first met," he explained. I tried to picture the story he told me. Me stranded by the side of the road and him driving up in his red truck to save the day. It was a good story, and I was ready to accept it was true. We sat together after the meal. "So, April," he said, "I was wondering how you felt about coming upstairs and staying with me. Doesn't have to be anything more than that. Just us sleeping in the same bed again." I gripped his hand. "Yes, I'm okay with that. Brandon, I'm so sorry for what I'm putting you through. I just wish I knew why." "It's okay, April, really." "Brandon, did we have plans, like life plans moving forward?" "Yeah," he responded. "We were trying to have a kid. We had it all planned out, names and everything. Hannah for a girl, Martin for a boy, but don't worry about that. We can take things one step at a time." I felt secure enough around him that I fell asleep quickly that night. I awoke several hours later to the sounds of Brandon having a nightmare. He was sweating, shaking, and making low, panicked murmurs. I put my arms around him and whispered, "Brandon, it's okay. You're just having a bad dream." He calmed down quickly. For a moment, he seemed to wake up, ever so slightly. "Thank you. I love you, April." "I love you too," I whispered back. He quickly went back to sleep as I realized what I'd said. I'd finally spoken those words, and I'd done so spontaneously. Maybe things really are going to work out, I thought as I dozed off again. The next morning, I waited for the dealership's shuttle to arrive to take me to pick up my car. As I climbed inside the van, I saw that it had a different driver than before. I slowly realized to my surprise that it was the same bald man who'd assisted me at the occult store. As he drove, he spoke to me in a frantic voice. "April, I need you to listen to me very carefully. We don't have much time." "What are you doing here? How do you know my name?" I pulled out my phone. No, put that away," he said. I realized he was driving at a dangerously fast speed in the opposite direction of the dealership. "You want answers, don't you? Well, I have them. Look, if you want to talk, let's pull over and..." "We don't have time," he yelled. "Hear me out, please, please. There's a reason May sent you to me." That got my attention. "Start talking." "You have no idea how hard I've worked to pull this off. We only have a brief window before he catches on. If we're lucky, it'll be just enough time to get to Emma, and then the two of you need to get as far away from here as possible." "Emma? Who the hell is Emma?" "1 second," he said as he merged the van onto the interstate. He then reached into the glove box and removed a Polaroid photo, which he passed to me. In the picture, I was in an orange sundress in a park by the harbor, with a beaming expression of joy on my face. A woman I vaguely recognized was kneeling before me. In one hand, she held a leash that connected to a Ridgeback puppy. In her other, she held out a beautiful golden ring. "That's Emma, your wife," the man said. "She and the pup, Tessa, are waiting for us at a deserted motel, a place where you may be safe for a little while." "My what?" No, it couldn't be. I believe you ran into her a little while ago." I realized where I'd seen her. She was the crazy lady at the park, the one Brandon had protected me from. But why, if that's true? I've studied legends about an ancient Cambion called Grousel. Until I saw you at the store, I thought they were just that legends. I didn't think he was real. But the symbol you showed me, and the text, it's a book only he would have. Nobody knows for sure what's inside of it, but the most common theory is that it's where he records each alteration he makes. He continued as I tried to digest what he was saying. Grousel casts illusions that are almost impossible to see through, and he can command people to do what he wants. It takes incredible willpower to even notice his influence, and even more to do anything about it. Even temporary resistance can only be achieved at the cost of severe physical punishment. I remembered the blood running down the woman's, Emma's face as she scrambled after me. Had she been trying to tell me who I really was? I thought too about May's bloody accident, just as she directed me to the one person who had the answers I was seeking. "When you showed me the book cover," he said, "I had to pretend I didn't know anything about it. I arranged to pick you up here in circumstances that he wouldn't view as suspicious. As far as he knows, you're still on the way to the dealership. But as soon as he realizes you aren't where you should be, he will search for us, and if we're not far enough away from him, he'll find us. Okay, so call me John. Fine, Jean. So you're telling me that this thing, whatever you called it, is making all of this happen? But why? And if he can fool everyone else, why can't he just make me remember being married to him? That's how he harnesses his power, said Jean as he took an unfamiliar exit. He latches onto a particular target, and there are limits on how much trickery he can use on that person. Sure, he can change pictures or legal documents, but he can't go in and actually alter your memory to insert himself into your past. The more you choose, out of your own free will, to believe his lies, the stronger he becomes, and the more elaborate his illusions can become. But why me in particular? I asked as the car turned down a dirt road that led through a thick forest. I can't say for sure, he replied. But I suspect it's because you're a challenging target for a lot of reasons. He could prey on the mentally unwell or those easily susceptible to influence, but fooling them doesn't give him the kind of power he craves. He chose you because he knew how skeptical you'd be. If he behaves as the texts describe, he'll discard you in a few years. Once he's sucked all the life out of you, and then he'll move on and find a new victim. April, I need to ask, how successful has he been so far? What do you mean? Well, prior to this ride, how convinced were you that he was telling the truth? That you were, in fact, married to him? I don't know, we haven't done anything, really, but I was starting to believe it. Last night, I even told him. John turned to me, a worried expression on his face. You told him what? Watch out, I cried, pointing to the road, but it was too late. But it was... The red pickup truck that I'd just spotted speeding out from the woods sideswiped the van. John cried out as the world flipped upside down. I remember the smell of smoke and excruciating pain as I lost consciousness. Tilda. When I next opened my eyes, I found myself in a hospital bed. My vision was blurry and I felt sore everywhere. A doctor leaned over me. He told me that I'd undergone emergency surgery to address injuries I'd sustained in a serious car accident, and that I'd been unconscious for nearly 3 days. He said it would take months of healing and therapy before I could walk again, but that with any luck, I'd eventually be able to make a full recovery. You're fortunate to have such a loving family, he told me. They've hardly left the hospital over the last few days. Do you mind if I let them come in to see you now that you're awake? I'm not sure why the doctor asked, as I lacked the strength and muscle control to respond either way. The doctor got up, opened the door, and called into the hallway. She can see you now. Brandon approached. He displayed a wide, toothy grin. April, you have no idea how worried Martin and I were about you. It's going to be okay, honey, I promise. I'll take good care of you for as long as it takes for you to get better. A small, auburn-haired child emerged from behind Brandon. Anguished tears flooded my eyes as he placed his hand gently on my face and spoke 4 words. I love you, Mommy. I spent the first few weeks in the hospital in a state of resignation. I said little and occupied my many bedridden hours staring emptily at the tile ceiling. My head ached, my ribs were sore, and my legs were barely responsive. But when I cried, it wasn't because of the physical pain. Every cautious, careful decision I'd made had been for nothing. I felt checkmated with no way out and nowhere to hide. There, Brandon would say while he gently patted my wet cheek with a tissue. You've been through so much. I'll always be here for you, and we'll make it through this together, I promise. I wanted to scream for help, to beg the nurses to keep him away from me, but that hadn't worked before, and that certainly wouldn't work now that the law recognized me as the guardian of a small child. While my body bore no signs of it, all the documentation necessary to establish that I'd given birth to Martin was in perfect order. There were hospital bills, preschool records, updates to insurance policies. His birth certificate displayed November 7th, 2018, 9 months after Valentine's Day, said Brandon with a sickly smile that made me want to punch him in the face. Of course, I had no memories of the boy I'd supposedly brought into this world who appeared with me and Brandon in dozens upon dozens of pictures and videos. I wondered what lay behind Martin's hazel eyes. Had Brandon somehow conjured up a real, living being? If so, was he human, the same thing as Brandon? A Cambion, as Jean had called him? Or something in between? Or was Martin a mere figment, the latest cruel illusion cast by my perpetual tormentor? I decided to play along. Based on what John had told me, Brandon wouldn't need me anymore if he realized that I knew the truth. The first time I'd undergone an operation, as the story went, I'd lost all memory of my loving husband as a fluke side effect. The second time, I'd lost all memory of my precious son. After all, that's what the brainwashed doctors are telling me, and that's what someone who believed Brandon's lies would think. So, I stayed in character as best as I could. I repeated to Brandon that I loved him, and that I accepted him as my husband, even as I still had no memories of him. I confessed that I had no memories now of Martin either, but that I trusted Brandon and believed him when he told me that Martin was my son. "Mommy is sick," Brandon had explained in front of me to a wide-eyed Martin. "Because she's sick, she sometimes has trouble remembering things, but she still loves you. Isn't that right, April?" Martin turned to me. "Yes," I croaked. "That's right, Martin. I'm sick, and I'm having some trouble remembering things, but I still love you." "When will you get better?" asked Martin, his brow furrowed with concern. "She will soon, Martin," assured Brandon. "Soon, and we'll do everything we can to support her." My parents were less sympathetic. "You're lucky that you married Brandon," chided my mother when she visited me. "A lot of men wouldn't still be so supportive after what you've put him through." I didn't bother arguing. Tilda, I couldn't let Brandon know what I'd learned from Jean. Of course, I had no real evidence of my relationship with Emma, but it felt true in a way that my supposed marriage to Brandon never had. I could only remember glimpsing her twice, but the image of her wiry frame, round face, and curly blonde hair had stuck with me. I prayed that maybe, just maybe, she'd figure out a way to rescue me from the hell that my life had become. Naturally, Brandon was eager to learn just what Jean had told me. In my version of events, I climbed into the van expecting another ride to the dealership, only to be whisked away from town against my will. I begged him to stop and let me out, but he wouldn't say anything. He was driving like a madman, Brandon. I'm not surprised somebody hit us. I think he was crazy. "He didn't tell you anything at all about what he wanted or where he was taking you?" asked Brandon. When I shook my head, I sensed his skepticism. He had reason to worry. If he got his power from convincing his victims of lies, then how long did I have before he realized that his were no longer fooling me? Hopefully a little while longer, long enough to flee or to come up with some plan to fight back. I figured that if I were to stay alive, I needed to gain some advantage over him. Even as the weeks of recovery, including regular sessions of intense physical therapy, helped me slowly regain control over my body, I feigned being unable to walk more than a few steps. I knew this act, something the doctors ascribed to a mental block, could only last so long, but at least it gave me a brief leg up over Brandon. A window during which he believed my movements were more restricted than they really were, and hopefully would monitor me less closely. I used those nights to sneak out of my bed and explore the hospital, taking care to move quietly and evade the staff whose routes I steadily learned. When I overheard two nurses chatting that the man found with me in the crash had finally woken up, I knew I had only a short time to act. That night, I forced my weakened body down a flight of stairs and across several corridors until I arrived at my destination in the intensive care unit. I slipped inside the room, closing the door quietly behind me. Jean was in a neck brace, and bruises covered much of his face. "I'm so sorry," I told him. "I'm only a stranger to you, and all this happened to you just because you wanted to help me." "April, I'm so glad you're still alive." He spoke softly in a weak, whimpering voice. "I told him that you didn't say a word to me in the van. You need to say the same thing if—" "I understand." I asked him the question that had been bothering me ever since I awoke at the hospital. "Jean, I need to know why he's keeping me around. You said Grousel gets his power from fooling people. But I know it's all an act now. So what's in it for him?" "He invested heavily in you." Jean stopped to catch his breath before continuing. "He won't give up until he knows that you're a lost cause. He may wait until he has another target. Play along. Convince him that you believe him. That will buy you some time." "I need to know how to kill him. Can he be shot or stabbed?" "No, you'd only be harming a mirage." "What if I destroy his book?" "That would undo some of his spells, but he can simply create a new book and cast them again." "Then what do I do?" I pleaded. Jean's response made little sense to me. "To defeat Grousel, shatter the illusions that give him his power. Only then will he be vulnerable. I left an athame with Emma that might—" I don't understand. How? Jean motioned for me to be silent, then gestured to the door behind me. I gasped when I realized its handle was slowly turning. Hide, whispered Jean. I scurried towards the closet at the far end of the room. From inside, I could still observe my surroundings through a narrow slit in the center of the closed, bifold doors. The door to Jean's room opened slowly as a small figure materialized from the shadows of the dimly lit hallway. It was Martin? Martin spoke in the same nauseatingly high-pitched voice I'd grown to loathe over the last few weeks. Excuse me, sir, I don't feel very good. Child, you must be lost, responded Jean. No, I don't think so, said Martin as he slowly approached Jean. Who are you, child? I'm no child, I'm a copy, an extension of an entity hundreds of years old. Abruptly, Martin hopped onto the bed and positioned himself over Jean. What are you doing? Asked a perplexed Jean. Ignoring him, Martin lowered his head until it was mere inches above Jean's. I told you I was sick. My head doesn't feel right, especially when I do this. Martin placed his hands behind his ears. Suddenly, he pressed hard until his hands penetrated and burrowed into his skin, leaving only his wrists exposed. Jean's expression shifted from bewilderment to horror as Martin continued to dig into his own head, twisting his hands around his scalp as he did so. Martin showed no sign of pain, even as blood oozed out of the increasingly long gash and showered onto Jean. When Brandon's hands finally emerged from his forehead, they held onto Martin's face, which disconnected from the rest of his head. Jean yelled expletives as he hit the nurse call button. That won't do you any good. The voice that resounded from Martin sounded nothing like it had before. It was deep, but with a wispy echo that caused every word to reverberate with an unnatural energy. They won't be coming to help you. I've disabled everything in here. Martin's form changed. His skin liquefied and melted into a thin layer of bloody residue, exposing underneath it a body made of murky green scales. Horns grew from the forehead of his new angular face. A set of pink wings burst through his shirt. His fingers stretched and curved as they transformed into long, sharp claws. Meanwhile, the flesh they held, which had once been the face of the child claiming to be my own, solidified into a circular wooden oval. What are you? Asked a panicked Jean. You haven't figured it out yet? Sneered Martin. The boy you saw was just an illusion, a veneer. A boring role I've spent the last few months playing. Indeed, I realized that the object he was holding was now an exceedingly plain mask, its only notable features being a minor indentation for a nose and 3 nondescript holes for eyes and a mouth. Jean looked at him wide-eyed. Grousel, he made another one. Martin laughed. Not many know our name. It took decades to harness the energy necessary for fission. The sucker upstairs telling me that she loved me, the other me, that is, was the finishing touch. But the real question is, does she know? I'll find out soon enough, but you could save me the trouble. I don't know what you're talking about, whimpered Jean. Martin extended a claw against Jean's shoulder. I can carve you up, bit by bit, until you tell me. He moved his claw down Jean's arm. Is that what you want? His claw stopped when it reached Jean's wrist. Now what is this? Martin's claw had grasped a metal bracelet. Its chain appeared to be made of silver, and it featured a small amethyst stone in its center. It's nothing. They gave it back to me with my other personals when I awoke. Oh, it's no ordinary bracelet, said Martin. You put some work into charming its jewel to protect against our influence. Clever, but it's of no value anymore. With swift motion, Martin's claw ripped through the bracelet, causing it to snap and its parts to scatter across the floor. Now tell me, what did you say to April? Jean took a deep breath before replying. I had everything set up at a motel, pictures, books, charts. I was going to explain it all to her when we got there. When we crashed? I hadn't told her anything at all yet. She probably thinks I'm just some crazy person. Martin glanced down for a moment, then back at Jean. A satisfied smile spread across his face as he hopped to the ground. I believe you, he said. He held out the palm of his left hand, which he proceeded to dig into with his right claw, until drops of emerald green bled out from it. But you're still too much trouble to keep around. Martin walked around Jean, using his hand to let drops of blood fall against the floor and the hospital bed until it formed a liquid outline that surrounded Jean. "Don't do this," pleaded Jean. Martin ignored him, instead stepping backwards and closing his eyes. He began to chant in a language that sounded to me like Latin. As the volume and tempo of his words gradually increased, the drops of blood on the floor started to simmer until finally they burst into green flames that stretched up halfway to the ceiling. "Please!" yelled Jean. But it was too late. At once, the ring of fire expanded rapidly inwards, engulfing Jean. In an instant, Jean's body disintegrated, leaving behind only bits of charred, brittle bone, and the flames disappeared moments later. It took all the strength I had to resist yelling out or bolting for the exit. I closed my eyes as a wave of shock ran through me. I'd just witnessed the murder of an innocent man, at the hands of the very being I'd been pretending was my son. Gone too was my best hope for ever defeating Brandon. When I opened my eyes, Martin was holding a flimsy, heavily burnt bit of Jean's bone. Martin tightened his claws around it, crumpling it into a gray powder that he scooped into a plastic bag. Martin lifted the wooden mask and pressed it against his face. Over the next few seconds, his human body reformed around him, such that he once more resembled the small child who'd regularly visited me at the hospital, albeit with long tears on the back of his shirt that marked the spots out of which his wings had sprouted. Bag in hand, Martin crept away into the gloomy corridor outside. Tilda. By the time my physical state had improved enough for the hospital to discharge me, my emotional state had hit rock bottom. I had no idea how to defeat Brandon. Shatter the illusions that give him his power, Jean had said. But how the hell could I do that? The only thing I could think of was to run. Planning our next vacation? Brandon had asked me the morning after I'd stayed up searching flights and bus routes on my phone. What? No, I'd responded, flustered. He shrugged as he continued preparing breakfast for the three of us. Good. It's important that you rest and stay put until you're fully recovered. The incident left me frustrated with myself. Of course, Brandon had a way of monitoring my phone. I should have anticipated that. In time, my health had improved to the point that I could leave the house for short errands or to take myself to therapy. But no matter where I went, I always assumed that Brandon was watching and listening. I lived my life as if under constant surveillance. I still kept up the act of being in worse shape than I was. Stairs in particular, I pretended to need extensive help with. Brandon happily obliged, holding me lovingly around the waist and shoulder as he helped me climb up to our bedroom every night. I spent my days caring for a monster I pretended to love. Having no actual prior experience with childcare, I had to learn fast. Martin cried, threw fits, and generally left me exhausted. Nonetheless, I tried to treat him affectionately as I dressed him, worked with him on potty training, and read to him. Once, while picking up his stuffed animals, I felt a small, solid object on the inside of a purple rabbit he liked to hold while he slept. "Give me Mr. Boots," commanded Martin, before I had a chance to investigate further. "Of course, sweetie," I said, praying that whatever was inside of it was a choking hazard. Throughout the long, tedious days I spent with Martin, images flashed through my mind of Martin's true demonic form and Jean's fiery death at his hands. Did the same fate await me when Brandon realized the truth? I spent my nights with Brandon curled up around me. He would hold me tightly, and he was getting bolder and pushier about wanting to resume intimate activities with me. Activities that, according to him, I had usually been the one to initiate. "I want that too, Brandon," I would say. "But I'm still healing. I'm so sore. I don't think I'm ready yet." "Okay, love," he would reply while gripping my hand. "Take your time. Only once you're ready." I rarely got much sleep. Tilda. As part of my loving wife and mother act, I'd insisted on giving Brandon a break by taking Martin to a preschool friend's birthday party at a neighbor's house. After an hour, the noise of the many screeching children ignited a raging headache in me. It didn't help that another mother kept talking my ear off despite my many attempts to evade her. "I hear you're forgetting things again?" she screeched. Personally, I don't get it. Nothing could ever make me forget about my Samantha. She's the most important thing in the world to me. "Excuse me," I said as I hobbled towards the quiet front porch. From outside, I looked in through the glass. Among the children stood a figure I hadn't noticed before, a costumed character in the form of a black cat. The costume reminded me of a sports team mascot, if a bit shorter, and it dragged a prop tail behind it as it waddled through the room to the delight of the kids around it. As the kids thronged around a box labeled party favors that it placed in the room's center, the cat turned towards me. Fear instincts kicked in as it locked its large, nightmarishly red eyes onto me and proceeded to move in my direction. I backed up until I hit the porch railing. Meanwhile, the costumed figure kept on coming. Fumbling awkwardly against the handle, it opened the front door and continued approaching me. My heart throbbed as the cat slowly extended a long, furry arm towards me. To my relief, it merely placed a small goodie bag at my feet before returning silently to the party. Still flustered by the situation, I reached inside the bag, finding a small disposable camera and a handwritten note containing the following text. April, there is a way out of this, but you need to follow these precise instructions. First, don't tell anyone about this note. Keep it hidden, or better yet, burn it. Second, take pictures of the pages within Brandon's book. The more recent and legible they are, the better. Use the camera here and leave it in the bush beneath your bedroom window tomorrow night. Third, agree to host a substitute dinner at the original time. Stay alive until then, and when the time comes, tell the truth asterisk. Asterisk. Holy shit, I thought as I stuffed the note and camera back into the bag. Someone was trying to help me. That's what this had to mean, right? I recalled how Gene had spent weeks getting himself a job at the dealership, just to have a chance to talk to me without Brandon noticing anything out of the ordinary. Had May, Emma, or someone else gone to the trouble of getting an entertainer gig at this party, just to have a moment to communicate with me? Before I had a chance to act, Martin ran up to me excitedly. "My bag had gummies and tattoos," he exclaimed. "What's in yours?" The same. The same. Tilda. The party ended soon after, and I didn't see the costumed figure again. The words from the note ran through my mind as I drove Martin home. I had no better idea than to follow its instructions, but locating Brandon's book and the key I would need to unlock it would be no easy task. And what dinner did I need to survive until, and what truth did I need to confess? I didn't have to wait long for a few answers. It was around 8 at night, just after I'd tucked Martin into bed, when the doorbell rang. To my delight, I opened it to find my friends May and Olivia, who said they were there to check in on me. I played it cool. Naturally, I wondered if they remained under Brandon's control, or if they were there to help me. Had one of them been in the costume? Olivia announced that she had major news, revealing a rose gold ring with a deep purple diamond around her finger. I had no idea, I exclaimed, a little hurt that I hadn't even known Olivia was seeing anyone seriously. "Don't worry," said May, sensing my reaction. "I barely knew about it, and I'm her housemate." Brandon and I congratulated Olivia, and I expressed that I couldn't wait to meet her partner. "We've been planning a small engagement dinner later this month, and we were about to invite you all to it," explained Olivia. "But the restaurant just canceled. Seems like they're going out of business. So it looks like we're back at square one." "I'm sorry to hear that," said Brandon, "but I'm sure you can find another spot." "No, don't do that," I said, prompting quizzical looks from the others. We'll host it here, if that's okay with you. We'd love to do that, actually. Right, Brandon? Brandon gave me a quick, surprised glance. Yeah, of course. We can have you over if that's all right with you two." "Really?" asked Olivia. "You don't have to do that for us. We don't want to burden you. Really, it's no problem for us to just find a new venue and..." "I think it's a great idea," said May, turning to Olivia. "As long as it's okay with you, I'm on board." Okay, said Olivia, growing a little red as she thanked me and Brandon. Before leaving, May gave me a quick, friendly hug. As she did so, I noticed that she wore a necklace that was tucked into her shirt. At its center was a tear-shaped amethyst jewel, Tilda. The next morning, I relayed that I still had a headache from the previous night, and Brandon agreed to drop Martin off at preschool on his way to work. I began rummaging through the house as soon as they pulled out of the driveway. The key was easy enough to find. Slipping my fingers through a tiny incision in Mr. Boots's belly, I pulled it out without noticeably damaging Martin's favorite toy. The more challenging task was locating the book. I'd found it once stuffed deep within the cushion of the basement sofa, but now, Brandon had hidden it somewhere else. Presumably someplace where I wouldn't stumble across it. I looked everywhere I could think of. Behind every book, in every piece of furniture, every closet, and every drawer. Checking the clock, I realized hardly an hour remained before Brandon brought Martin home. Think, April? Think. Where would Brandon expect me to never go? I glanced up at the retractable staircase that led to the attic. Not only would I need a stepping stool to reach it, but I'd then have to climb its rickety steps. Something I'd convinced Brandon I was incapable of doing. It still wasn't easy. My body struggled to make the ascent, and an aching pain ran through me when I finally set my feet down on the dusty wooden floor. The attic was hot and musty. A single box sat nearby. It was filled with rags, dirty towels, and beneath them all, the same book I'd found months earlier. The key fit right in. Tilda. I turned its brittle, antiquated pages carefully. Tiny, handwritten scribbles covered each one of them so densely that the paper itself was barely visible underneath. The words appeared to be of varying languages. At first they appeared old, ancient even, but I started to vaguely recognize them around the halfway point. Something loosely Slavic, then German, then French. I noticed patterns too in the layout. A new section would begin with a name, usually, but not always, a feminine one. Towards the end, as the writing appeared in Spanish, I saw names like Josefa, Dolores, and Angel. As the writing transitioned into English over the last few pages, I came across sections labeled Allison, Deborah, Naomi. I paused to read one, labeled Beatrice, in detail. The first few pages were filled with detailed notes about her daily routine, friends, family, health, likes, dislikes, phobias, fantasies, and sexual history. Intelligent, skeptical, slow to trust. Valuable target. High likelihood of initial rejection. Persuasion will require endorsements not just from friends and family, but also her counselor and doctors. Using the camera from the gift bag, I snapped pictures of the next several pages which listed what appeared to be steps and ingredients for various incantations. I took pictures too of the next few sections, which contained similar information related to a wealthy, elderly man named Garrett, a middle-aged theater performer named Erica, and a young woman studying biology named Kathleen. In each case, the notes revealed the extraordinary amount of work Brandon had done studying his targets, followed by the elaborate spells he had used to support his gaslighting routine. Finally, I reached the section titled April. Bracing myself for the discomfort that would follow, I skimmed Brandon's summaries of my background, which mostly consisted of mundane details about my education, career, health, hobbies, and interests. Every place over weeks that I'd visited and how I'd gotten there. A paragraph about my relationship with Emma described us as deeply in love. It ended. Parents remain unsupportive, ashamed, will be easy to sway. The final section read differently from the rest. His cursive was sloppier and less methodical than before. Does she know? Does she know? Does she know? Still won't put out. Little nourishment. Less energy than before. He must have told her. His story matches hers. But does she know? Still unwilling in bed. Should have caved by now. Does she know? Does she know? Time to move on? I wiped my forehead before turning to the last page. The name at the top read, Margaret. Oh shit, I thought, as a horrifying feeling settled upon me. The details that followed, which appeared incomplete, were of May's life. From every place she'd ever lived to her family, mental health issues, various eccentric hobbies, friendship with Olivia, past boyfriends, and present relationship with Casey. If I don't stop him, I realized, she'll be next. A sound from several stories below me broke the silence. Fuck, I thought, slamming the book shut and relocking it, as I realized that Brandon and Martin had just opened the front door. Frantically, I placed it back where I found it and rushed as best I could towards the retractable staircase. Tilda, I'd just returned the key to Martin's stuffed animal when they made it upstairs. Hey, Brandon, I was just tidying Martin's room up a bit. Brandon eyed me suspiciously as Martin took Mr. Boots from my hand. Everything okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I realized I was caked in sweat. I was trying to clean a bit, and I went up and down the stairs my own. I shouldn't have. It was tough, and I barely made it. Oh, honey, said Brandon, as he gently embraced me. I know you want to help out, but you need to take care of yourself. Tildy, late that evening, Brandon led me down to the kitchen to try a dish he was preparing, explaining that he might serve it at the engagement dinner if it turned out well. I sat at the kitchen table as he sliced several tomatoes. "Funny thing," he said as he cooked. "When I got home today, I noticed that the attic door was partially open." I felt my face grow pale. "Oh, really? I didn't notice that." "Yep, it was almost shut, but not quite. I'm sure I didn't leave it that way." It got me thinking. Thinking about what? About... Brandon stopped talking for a moment as he chopped up a cucumber in a series of rapid, precise movements. About who would have gone up there. It wasn't me. Martin can't reach that high, so that leaves you. "Brandon, don't be silly." I forced a smile. "I have no reason to go up there. And even if I wanted to, you can barely go up steps on your own, right? Anyway, food's ready." He placed a plate of the dish penne with vegetables he'd been preparing before me. "Don't start yet, though. There's one more ingredient I still need to add. A French seasoning I got a sample of at the farmer's market last weekend." He removed from a cabinet a small plastic bag containing a gray powder. As Brandon brought it closer to me, I slowly recalled where I'd seen it before. "Just a few pinches of this," said Brandon as he spread it over my plate. "And it's ready. Please try it." I'm not sure if I'm still hungry." "Try it," insisted Brandon. There was a fire in the back of his green eyes. I wanted so badly to smash the plate on the floor and use a kitchen knife to cut Brandon's throat. But instead, I closed my eyes. "Just a little bit longer," I repeated to myself, remembering the note. "This is a test. I can pass it. I didn't survive this long to fail now." I opened my eyes again. "Okay, I'll try it." My shaking hand dug my fork into the pasta, all covered in a thin layer of bone dust, into my mouth. I chewed, swallowed, and took another bite. "It's good. Really good, Brandon. Thank you." He made me finish it. When my plate was empty, I announced I was going to bed. "Sure, I'll help you up," said Brandon. As we approached the staircase, I realized I was feeling nauseous. The knots in my stomach only grew tighter when Brandon held me around my waist and shoulder and pushed his body against mine. "I can do this," I repeated to myself. As we slowly ascended, I tried as hard as I could to ignore the dizziness that was setting upon me. But I couldn't help but recall Jean's fiery death at Martin's hands, and the way Martin had crumbled up his brittle bones. Oh God, what had I done? Before I knew it, I was on my knees, projectile vomiting half-digested bits of pasta, vegetables, and Jean all over the carpeted steps. Tilda Brandon left me alone after I convinced him that my stomach had settled. With Martin asleep, I took the opportunity to comply with another of the note's instructions by dropping the camera out the bedroom window into the bush below. As I settled into bed, I recalled the words at the start of the note. "April, there is a way out of this." I tried to focus on the hope those words represented and suppress the questions that swam through mind. Who wrote it? Who would, presumably, be coming to retrieve the camera? Why they needed the photos I'd taken? And if their plan, which very much seemed set to occur at the dinner party, would actually work. I wondered, too, if I'd even survive long enough for it to matter. I'd given Brandon every reason to be suspicious, and from the looks of it, he was already gathering information about his next victim. After plenty of tossing and turning, I managed to drift off to sleep. In my dream, Brandon was gone and Emma and I were vacationing together in a secluded cabin. I asked Emma what had happened to Brandon, and she smiled and told me that I didn't need to worry about him anymore. A sense of relief swept through me. I felt happier than I'd been since before I went in for the operation so many months ago. But when I rested my head against Emma's shoulder, I saw a pair of wings sprout from her back. I stepped back as her face fell off, forming into a mask as it hit the floor. Emma appeared before me now in the diabolical form I'd seen Martin transform into at the hospital. "No!" I cried. "It can't be. Not you too." "You really thought you could escape me?" he taunted as he leapt toward me. I awoke in a sweat. I was on my stomach and I noticed the bedsheet near me absorb a drop of liquid with a greenish tint. Another drop followed, then another. I froze. I heard whispers. It was Brandon's voice. He sounded like he was standing next to me. He was chanting, and it was the same fucking chant Martin had repeated before igniting Jean. So this was it. Brandon was done with me. He knew I'd been in the attic looking for his book. He knew that I knew the real ingredient he'd added to the pasta. He knew that I was no use to him any longer. If I tried to run, he'd catch me. If I tried to fight him, he'd win. If I tried nothing, I'd burn. Brandon's chanting grew faster, louder. Fuck, what do I do? I thought about what I'd read in Brandon's book, his recent advances, and his comment about Valentine's Day. What if I... No. That was a price I'd rather die than pay. But there was one idea worth trying, something that could keep me alive long enough to have a chance at escape. After all, if whatever was set to transpire at the dinner party didn't work, I was as good as dead anyway. Brandon, is that you? I used as innocuous a voice as I could muster. As I spoke, I kept my head buried in my pillow. I didn't want him to think I'd seen anything. There's something I've been meaning to tell you, something important. The chanting ceased. Sorry if I woke you, April, said Brandon. I was just talking to myself. What is it? I think it's about time for us to restart a few things. What do you mean, honey? I want you, Brandon. I want us to fuck like we used to. You have no idea how much I want you inside of me, Brandon. Oh. I sensed Brandon's approach. He nuzzled his head against mine and whispered into my ear. Are you sure you're ready for that, honey? I don't want to rush you. This dinner we're hosting, it'll be a big event for all of us as a family. I've been thinking, after the guests have left and we've put Martin to bed, that can be our first time since all this happened. Starting then, I want it to be like old times. I want you to show me all the things we did together. Brandon gave me a light kiss on the back of my head. You have no idea how much that means to me. Weeks have passed since then. The party is set to occur in several hours. In the interim, Brandon's last words from that terrible evening have echoed in my mind. I promise you, April, it will be a night to remember. The ring of the doorbell set off a flurry of butterflies in my stomach. This is it, I thought, as I got up to greet my friends. Whoever is trying to save me will make their attempt tonight. I reminded myself that I'd done my part. It hadn't been easy, but I'd managed to follow the instructions left for me. I'd taken the requested pictures of Brandon's book, and judging by the camera's absence from the bush I'd dropped it onto, someone had retrieved it. Importantly, I'd completed the most challenging task of all. I'd stayed alive. To do so, I'd made a promise to Brandon that he regularly reminded me of, a promise that I had no intention of ever fulfilling. If at the end of the night I remained Brandon's captive, I'd finally try to fight him. I'd lose, but I'd at least go down swinging. I opened the door to find May and Casey both nicely dressed, the former holding a rectangular box under her arm. I welcomed them inside and turned towards our remaining guests. My jaw dropped as Olivia introduced me to her fiancé. I instantly recognized her round face and curls of blonde hair. Emma, I blurted out impulsively. She held out her hand. And you must be April. As she thanked me for hosting the dinner, I stood dumbfounded, unsure of what to do or how to respond. Had my dreams of Emma arriving as my savior come true? Was she just pretending to be Olivia's fiancé and really here to engineer something that would set me free? Or had Brandon already outplayed me? This could be his own sick way of taunting me, of showing me that not only was Emma out of my reach, but also forcing me to witness the painful spectacle of her coerced into romance with one of my close friends. Something wrong? Asked Brandon, noticing my perplexed reaction to Emma. I snapped out of my daze and shook her hand. No, it's nice to meet you, Emma. Please come in. Tilda. Well, Olivia, are you going to tell them the story about how you two met? Asked May as Brandon poured wine for everyone at the table except Martin. Oh, it's embarrassing, giggled Olivia, her face growing a little pink. Do I have to? It is your engagement dinner, said May. The least you can do is share with our generous hosts how... It's all right, interrupted Emma, putting her arm around Olivia. I've got this, if that's okay with you. Sure, said a relieved Olivia. Emma took a deep breath. So, it was after the snowstorm last winter. As you may remember, there was ice everywhere, all over the roads and sidewalks. I was taking my dog Tessa on a morning walk, and here comes this young woman, clearly underdressed for the weather and in last night's outfit, speed walking towards a thick patch of black ice. Be sure to bring up where she was returning from, teased May. Oh, whined Olivia, her hand covering much of her face. You don't need to... Olivia had just spent what I'm sure was a very ahem. She glanced at Martin before continuing. Let's say exciting night with a true gentleman of a boyfriend who let her walk home alone in apocalyptic weather. Ray was never my boyfriend, whined Olivia. It was nothing serious, and he had to get from the hotel to the airport early, and he offered, "You had your chance to present this story yourself," snorted May as she swallowed a gulp of the wine. "Let Emma tell it." Emma resumed her narration. Anyway, I'm watching her approach, and I could sense exactly what was about to happen. But before I could say anything, Olivia, as she'd tell me her name was, lets out a shriek as she goes sliding across the sidewalk. I ran to catch up with her and tried to grab her as she tumbled backward towards me. She ended up falling on me, and we landed in the snow together. "How romantic," commented Brandon. I shuddered as a tipsy May made a pun about them falling for each other. "Did it hurt when you fell down?" squeaked Martin from his booster seat. "Don't worry, little guy, I was fine," reassured Emma. But Olivia told me her ankle was in pain, so I insisted she come inside with me and Tessa so that I could take a look at it. We chatted a bit, and I eventually convinced her to call an Uber to take her the remaining few blocks to her and May's place. I looked her up on social media afterwards, we made plans to meet up, and yada yada yada, now we're here, celebrating our engagement. Emma gripped her embarrassed partner's hand as she finished the story. I had no idea how to process all of this. I'd spent months convincing myself that Emma loved me. Now she and Olivia seemed so happy together, so sincere in their affection. If it was an act on their part, it was a convincing one. Anxieties I'd fought hard to repress began to resurface. I had no memories of Emma and I being together after all, just a picture, Jean's words, and some scribblings in Brandon's book. Even if she was here to help me, who's to say that she still loved me? Or if I made it out of this mess, that I'd still feel anything for her. As Brandon served dessert, other concerns began to bother me. None of our guests had shown any sign of having a plan to fight Brandon or rescue me from him. What if I'd been wrong about this whole thing, or if Brandon, or Martin for that matter, had left the note as part of some twisted prank at my expense? Tilda. When I wished Martin good night, I played it cool despite knowing that it was the last time either of us would have to act our way through that particular ritual. "Sleep tight and don't let the bedbugs bite," I told him, trying to sound as loving as I could before Brandon took him upstairs. I wondered about the winged demon inside of him. Did it enjoy playing a giggly child? Upon Brandon's return, May placed the box she'd carried inside on the dining room table. "There's one more thing we need to do tonight." "I didn't know you were serious about it," exclaimed Olivia. "Oh, she is," chuckled Casey. "She's been telling me about this for weeks." "You promised, Olivia, remember?" said May. "One more time before you move out? Plus, when else are all of us going to be together like this?" "One more time of what?" asked Emma. "You'll see," replied May with a sly smile. She looked at me. "Y'all have a fireplace downstairs, right?" Tilda. At May's request, we turned off the lamps and ceiling lights. Instead, only the flames from the fireplace and the half-dozen candles that lined the perimeter of the circular table illuminated the detailed design of the Ouija board May placed on it. Surrounding the usual features of an alphabet, a series of numbers, yes, no, and goodbye, were finely drawn images of the sun, a crescent moon, a pentagram, and an owl wedged between two human skulls. So what was the plan here, exactly, I thought. And who's in on it? May and Casey? Emma? No one. "What do you think about this?" I whispered to Brandon as we took our seats, genuinely curious about his reaction. He shrugged. "I don't think it's real, if that's what you're saying. Just a harmless game. If it bothers you, I can ask everyone to leave." "Oh, it doesn't," I blurted out, perhaps a bit too quickly. The last thing I wanted was to be left alone with Brandon. Tonight of all nights. "Last chance, Olivia," said May. "I know I kind of pressured you. Are you sure?" "Oh, it's fine," Olivia responded. "You were right. It's been too long since we did something like this." I noticed that she was tightly gripping Emma's hand. Casey offered to retrieve an unopened bottle of wine he'd brought from the kitchen. "Sounds good to me," said May, giving him a quick kiss on the cheek. "Please get started and don't wait for me," he said before heading upstairs. "Well, let's begin then." May looked over Olivia, Emma, Brandon, and me. "Everyone, close your eyes. Soak in the ambiance. Remember, we're here only to observe any spirits who answer us." After several moments, May began quietly chanting, "Reveles vosmet inquieti spiritus." Restless spirits, reveal yourselves. Revelus Vosmet, Ultraces Spiritus? Vengeful spirits, reveal yourselves. Any reason you're calling these spirits in particular? Asked Emma jokingly. May sighed. We don't want some lame-ass ghost to show up and give boring answers about being content in the afterlife. You're about to get married. It's a big moment in your life. Before that, I want to give both of you an opportunity for closure with anyone you never had the chance to wrap things up with, especially if they have some reason to be angry with you. At May's direction, Olivia and Emma joined her in placing their index and middle fingers on the planchette. After a few moments, Olivia noted that nothing was happening. Nothing's going to happen, complained Emma. This is silly. May instructed them to give it some time. Just relax and don't resist if you make contact with a spirit. Let it move through you to communicate with us. Olivia piped up after several minutes of silence. Am I the only one who feels that? Feels what? I asked. Olivia described sensing a cold, dark presence. Emma insisted it was just Olivia's imagination, but then the planchette started drifting around the board in a slow, circular motion. One of you is moving it, accused Emma, but May and Olivia both denied it. May shushed them and cleared her throat. Is there a spirit here with us now? The planchette shifted past both yes and no before settling puzzlingly on yeah 4. I told you this was nonsense, said Emma. May maintained that it had to mean something. I sense, murmured Olivia. I sense more than one presence. What are you saying? I asked. I think there are 4 spirits here. Are there 4 spirits here communicating with us now? Asked May. The planchette moved to yes. Okay, have your fun, said Emma, releasing her grip. I don't like this, May continued, ignoring her. Do you have unfinished business of some kind with Olivia? The answer was no. May repeated the question regarding Emma and got the same response. Is there someone here you have a connection with? The planchette shifted to the alphabet. I read out the letters on which it landed. B-R-A-N-D-O-N. Brandon chuckled. All right, I'll play along. Spooky ghosts, what do you want with me? The planchette darted swiftly through 4 letters. K-I-L-L. Brandon complained that the joke wasn't funny, and Emma requested that they stop the seance. Even if we stopped, explained May, we've already summoned these spirits. We may as well get more information. Brandon sighed. Fine, but I want to wrap this up soon. Vengeful spirits who want to kill me? What are your names? Their response prompted a shift in his perspective. As the letters spelled out B-E-A-T-R-I-C-E, G-A-R-R-E-T, E-R-I-K-A, and finally K-A-T-H-L-E-E-N, he grew visibly uncomfortable. What the fuck? He muttered. I remembered those names. They were Brandon's most recent victims before me. Were there spirits here now? Or was this some kind of elaborate trick? The planchette, still handled by May and Olivia, began to move unprompted. U-P-S-T-A-I-R-S, I read out, unsure what to make of it. Where's Casey? Asked Emma. Oh shit. May jumped out of her chair and ran up the steps, calling her boyfriend's name as she went. This is over, said Brandon, pushing Olivia's hand off the planchette and returning the board to the box May had brought it in. I think it's time for you all to leave. May's high-pitched scream rang from upstairs. Olivia called out, asking if she was all right, but no response came. I'll check on her, said Brandon, getting up from his seat. No, you stay here with April, said Emma. I'll go. Brandon, Olivia, and I waited at the foot of the stairs as Emma ascended. Oh, God, she called down. There's blood everywhere. Watch out, Olivia hollered, but it was too late. A shadowy figure from above grabbed Emma around the neck and dragged her out of sight. The door slammed shut. Olivia and Brandon hurried up to it, trying to wedge it open. It's like there's a piece of furniture blocking us, said Brandon. He glanced down at his feet, noticing a puddle of red liquid leaking from under the doorframe onto the top steps. What is this? What's happening? I'd never before seen Brandon like this, frightened and confused. Not that I was in better shape. Oh God, said Olivia, noticing the blood. I have to get to Emma. Is there any other way up there? You'd have to go around back, I stammered. I tried to tell her to flee and get help rather than back inside. I didn't want her to get hurt too. But in my panic, the remainder of my words came out as a useless jumble. Olivia sprinted downstairs, opened the door to the backyard, and burst outside. The door slammed shut behind her. I was still in no physical shape to be traversing the staircase or the hilly landscape, so I waited where I was. My mind struggled to process the events I had witnessed. Had we really summoned the spirits of Brandon's latest victims? If that was the plan, who was in on it, and had it gotten out of hand? Were Casey, May, Olivia, and Emma injured, or worse? Brandon, meanwhile, appeared to be having a meltdown. He was pacing in a loop, talking to himself as he did so. How could she? This can't happen. A thud at the glass window to the backyard got our attention. Through the darkness, I saw a circular object rolling away into the grass. One after another, 3 more round objects hit the glass. I screamed when I realized what they were, the detached heads of each of our house guests. "Oh, fuck," gasped Brandon. At this point, any real parent would try whatever they could to get upstairs and check in on their son. But neither of us were real parents, and neither of us had Martin on our mind. Instead, fear and confusion immobilized us both. I stumbled into a corner, crouched into a ball, and covered my face with my hands. This was far, far too much for me to take in. What was happening? Were my friends dead? The horrific sight of the decapitated heads of May, Casey, Olivia, and my supposed savior Emma sent me into a guilt-ridden stupor. Had they, like Jean, died because of me? "This can't be happening," I heard Brandon repeat to himself. The sound of a door creaking open prompted me to look up at 2 figures entering from outside. One waited behind while the other approached Brandon. She was pale and appeared emaciated, with a strikingly gaunt face. "You thought you were rid of me, didn't you?" Brandon responded in a meek, tepid voice. "I don't know you. What the fuck do you want from me?" "I look just as I did when you left me. Sucked of life, withered, scrawny. A mere shadow of my former self. Look at what you did to me." Brandon again denied knowing her. "I know that you're a liar. You tricked my friends, my family, my doctors, and my own fucking therapist. You told me that you were my boyfriend, but now I know the truth. I see through your lies. You're nobody." This was Beatrice, I realized, recalling the description from Brandon's book. The figure I inferred to be Erica stepped forward, positioning herself next to Beatrice. She had a similarly shrunken, weak appearance. Her clothes were tattered and she appeared half decayed, with several holes in her skin exposing rotted flesh underneath. She spoke in a rough, gravelly voice. "I spent my whole life coming to terms with my identity. No matter how many people told me I needed someone else, that I had to be attracted to somebody, I stayed true to myself. Until you came along. Suddenly, the whole world was telling me that you were my loving husband. The whole world convinced me of a lie. I held out for so long, for years, until I couldn't take it anymore. I finally accepted you, and look at what you did to me in return. You left me dead, an unwholesome meal for the worms." I don't know what you're—" "Hush!" snapped Erica. "Your pathetic lies don't fool me any longer. I see the truth. You're a weak, inept coward. You're not my husband. I don't love you." Sweat had soaked through Brandon's clothes. His shaking body backed up against the wall and collapsed. The door upstairs swung open, revealing Garrett and Kathleen. Their feeble forms stumbled down the stairs until they stood next to Beatrice and Erica in a semicircle around Brandon. "I had everything planned out," said Garrett. "It was going to be a happy retirement. When you appeared, claiming to be my son and heir, I denied it, only for the doctors to say that I was the problem, that my memory had deteriorated. You took everything from me, not just my estate, but also the golden years of my life. I want you to know that I reject you for the scum you are. You don't fool me, and you are not my son." Kathleen went next. "I hate you for what you did to me. I was so young and inexperienced when you entered my life. I ate up your lies. I went along with what everyone told me about you, but all I see when I look at you now is an ugly, pitiful creature. You're not my fiancé. I don't love you, and I don't believe you. Nobody does." Tears streamed down Brandon's eyes. "April, help me," he blabbered. Beatrice, Erica, Garrett, and Kathleen turned towards me. After what they'd done to my friends, I felt more terrified of them than I did of Brandon. "Brandon's asking for your help," said Beatrice. "Well, are you going to help your husband?" I froze. I had no idea what to do. I could try to run. Maybe these spirits wouldn't follow me. Their enmity was towards Brandon, not me after all. But that hadn't stopped them from fucking slaughtering my friends. But what other option did I even have? "April Lynn, do you have anything to share?" asked Beatrice. "Any truth you wish to tell?" That's when it hit me. I still couldn't make sense of the situation, but I knew, in that moment, that somehow they were the ones who'd left the note for me. They were the ones with a plan to defeat Brandon. I hated them for what they'd just done to my friends. Yes, they were victims of an incredible crime, one I'd experienced the misery of firsthand. But I couldn't find any sympathy for them, not after what I'd seen them do. Nonetheless, I recognized that they were giving me an opportunity to deal a finishing blow to Brandon. A chance to stop him from killing me and from destroying the lives of every victim he would seek out next. I had to take it. I stood up and stepped forward, joining the circle they had formed around Brandon. "April, dear," sobbed Brandon. "Please, please, I love you." Mustering my last bit of willpower, I managed to speak in a firm, commanding voice. "Jean told me everything." No, he didn't. "I've known ever since the accident that you're not a human. You're a Cambion, a trickster. I've been pretending to love you for months. I hate your guts. I was never going to sleep with you. You disgust me. You are not my husband. You never were. And Martin is not my son." I spat on him. Brandon's face started to shift in form, the skin of his cheeks and forehead sinking downwards towards his chin. I love you, April," were his last words as his face plopped off, hitting the floor as a plain wooden mask. His skin loosened and fell into a pile. The scaly, winged form that remained looked meager and delicate compared to what Martin had transformed into at the hospital. Beatrice gripped Brandon by the neck and lifted his limp form against the wall. She reached her free hand back towards Kathleen. "The Athame," she commanded. Kathleen complied, placing the jeweled black handle of a sharp dagger in Beatrice's hand. Beatrice stared straight into Brandon's eyes. "This is for what you did to April." With 2 rapid motions, she sliced the blade across Brandon's throat and then dug it deeply into his heart. Brandon's lifeless body fell against the floor in a growing pool of his own blood. His demise brought me little catharsis. I'd survived Brandon, but at such great cost to others, and I was still in danger. What the hell would happen now? Beatrice, Erica, Garrett, and Kathleen faced me once again. Were they going to kill me too? Or return to where they came from and leave me with the murderous demon child upstairs? "What is wrong with you?" I bawled. "You didn't have to kill my friends to get your revenge. They never did anything to hurt you. You're monsters, all of you." Beatrice raised the knife, but instead of using it against me, she jabbed it into her own cheek. I watched, shocked, as she twisted it around her head, sending a thick stream of blood running down her dress. That's when I realized what she was doing. Her face snapped off as a plain wooden mask. The woman before me changed shape. Her straight grayed brown hair curled into a striking blonde. My heart fluttered as I recognized the figure underneath the layer of blood and bits of loose flesh that steadily fell off of her real skin. She placed her hand gently on my shoulder. "It's me, April. Your wife." Tilda, I would learn later just how busy May, Casey, Olivia, and Emma had been over the last month. John had left Emma with plenty of resources, books on dark magic, objects charmed to resist Grousel's influence, and a blade that could penetrate the skin of a Cambion in its true form. Emma first connected with May, whose name Jean had left as someone able to provide assistance if anything happened to him, and May quickly looped in Casey and Olivia. They each donned and never removed one of the charmed objects. A bracelet for Casey, matching rings for Emma and Olivia, and a necklace for May. After days of studying Jean's material, May finally developed a plan. "It's a long shot," she explained. "It'll be dangerous, and it could very well fail, but if we do everything right, it really might work." Emma responded without hesitation. "Whatever it takes, I'll do it. I'm not leaving April with that monster." May listed the materials they would need for the base. 2 liters of salt water and 2 pints of blood. One of the untouched, one of the sinful, mixed with python scales, root of hemlock, garlic, and a pinch of burnt celery. They were able to gather the ingredients with varying degrees of effort. I know that Emma provided the former blood contribution, citing a technicality in the antiquated terms used for the potion's ingredients. I never pressed as to who gave the latter. The more formidable task was constructing the masks. As an initial matter, they needed me to gather information. I'd found Brandon's book once, after all, so surely I could locate it again. They knew that after Jean's stunt, Brandon would be on the alert for any attempt to communicate with me. The costumed entertainer had been Casey's idea, though May had been the one to don the catsuit at the party. They kept the content of the note as vague as they could, such that Brandon wouldn't trace it back to them if he discovered it. The most challenging part came after Emma retrieved the camera. In the weeks that followed, they set about identifying the full names and then the burial sites of each one of Brandon's last 4 victims. At night, they snuck in, shovels in hand, and dug. These excursions required careful planning. After all, the last thing any of them wanted were criminal charges for grave robbing. At the 6-foot mark, Casey would chisel away at the coffin that encased those Grousel had drained of life. They weren't after the bodies, just stretches of their wooden enclosures, which Casey and Emma then spent days carefully crafting into crude, unadorned masks. The final step came the night before the party, when May carefully lowered all 4 masks into the liquid base, leaving them to soak overnight. When they pulled up to my townhouse, May's car was filled with the items their plan required: the masks, prop heads, fake blood, the athame, and the Ouija board and planchette. Casey was prepared to step away at the start of the seance to gather everything they needed from the car. Olivia and Emma had carefully rehearsed their loving couple routine, something they'd designed to justify both Emma's presence and the dinner party itself, and Olivia and May knew just where and when to direct the planchette. "We can do this," May had said. "We can, really. Grousel has been destroying the lives of people just like us for centuries. Let's go kill him." Tilda. Of course, I wouldn't understand any of this until later. Instead, I stood dumbfounded, my jaw fully dropped, as what I'd believed to be 4 vengeful spirits reverted into my blood-covered friends. "We're okay, April," said May as she shed the remains of Kathleen's body, "though I do appreciate how upset you were about our deaths." "It's over now," said Emma. "You're safe." I shook my head. "What about Martin?" "From what I read," May replied, "since he's just an illusion, he should just disappear now that Brandon's—" "Martin's not an illusion," I spluttered. "He's a copy of Brandon. I saw him transform into the same type of fucked-up creature." All eyes turned to May. "Oh, fuck, that might be a problem." The door upstairs slowly opened. We watched as a small child, one I finally could stop pretending to love, stepped forward and examined the gruesome scene below. I thought about making up a story that Daddy had been hurt in an accident, or that we were all doing some elaborate role-playing game, but it would be of no use, and I'd grown sick of lying. "We just murdered your dad, you wretched little bitch," I sneered. "I never really believed you were my son, and we're going to kill you too." Tilda? It's possible that I could have said something more constructive, but I can't say I regret anything, even when accounting for the chaos that subsequently unfolded. Martin's mask fell quickly. It made sense to me. There was no one left to fool. I only remember what followed in a blur. Martin pounced, charging towards us at a rapid speed. He knocked into May, who hit her head hard against the table as she fell. The next thing I knew, me, Emma, and a furious Casey were holding Martin down while Olivia ran for the dagger still embedded in Brandon's body. I remember Martin's claws slashing into Casey's chest, Martin's flailing legs kicking and destabilizing the tall bookcase next to me, and a brief glimpse of a vase sliding off of a top shelf before everything went to black. Tilda. I found myself back where I'd started so many months ago. I awoke alone in the upstairs bedroom of my townhouse. I felt groggy, and my head ached. The door opened. Emma entered with a tray of food. She smiled at me when she saw that I was awake. "I know you have a lot of questions, but first, how is your head?" "It's fine. Please just tell me exactly what happened after... You got knocked out cold? Okay." Emma recounted how she and Casey had managed to restrain Martin just long enough for Olivia to run the blade through him. "Martin's dead," she told me. "You really are safe now. It's all over." I asked about the others. According to Emma, Olivia had taken May and Casey to the hospital. May got a concussion, and Casey's got cuts all over him. Not too bad, though. They'll both be okay. The blade. Can I see it? Emma asked me why. Just bring it, please, and the book where Brandon documented his spells. It's in the attic, in the bottom of the box by the stairs. Emma did as I asked, returning a few minutes later. Jean's the real hero behind all of this, she said as she passed me the knife. Left us with everything we needed to finally... She froze, stunned, as I hopped to my feet and held the blade up to her throat. April, what are you doing? Tilda. It wasn't easy going down 2 flights of stairs while holding a knife against Emma's throat. One misstep, and I could have slit it by accident. But I held it there anyway, like my life depended on it. Emma tried reasoning with me, listing all the reasons why I didn't need to worry about her. Look, if you really are Emma, I'll apologize to you later. But I'm too fucking tired of being lied to, of being told that I'm safe when I'm not. April, please don't do this. Did it never occur to you how it might look, with you here by my side and everyone else conveniently absent? Emma thought about this for a moment. Okay, I understand. For all you know, I could be Martin in a new mask, trying to fool you again. I don't know what to think. I don't even know you. Just do what I say, please. Okay, said Emma. Okay, I get it. I'll do what you say. We'll get through this. I hated how I couldn't tell whether Emma's words reflected honest devotion to me or just another diabolical ruse. After all, that's just what Brandon would have told me. At my direction, she reignited the remaining wood in the fireplace and tossed the book onto the flames. As its pages slowly turned to ash, I continued to hold the blade against her skin. She stared at me, her eyes warm and longing, and I stared back. I prayed what Jean told me would once again be correct, that burning the book would undo the remainder of Brandon's spells. I prayed that I take back the life that was stolen from me. My prayers came true. The blade fell to the floor as memories rushed through me. I recalled meeting Emma at the book fair, the long conversations in coffee shops, the nights she convinced me to go out with her friends, the way we slowly separated from them on the dance floor. I remembered counting down the hours until I'd see her again, confessing to her that the only thing I'd ever done before was exchange an awkward kiss with the boy my mother pressured me into taking to prom. The slow progression between Emma and me of holding to kissing, to touching to sex. So much earth-shattering, mind-blowing sex. I remembered the way she held me and let me cry onto her shoulder the night after I introduced her to my parents. The trip we took abroad, the day we adopted Tessa, the signatures we placed on our marriage certificate. As my love for her coursed through my veins, it felt like it was always a part of me and had never left. It surged like a river, and it grew in strength with each passing moment. I knew right then that there was nothing more true, more real than what I felt for the woman sitting next to me. I wanted to fall asleep holding on to her and to wake up with her still there beside me. I'd get my wish. Many hours later, May, Casey, and Olivia would return to our home with a few bandages from the hospital and Tessa from daycare. They'd find me sleeping on the sofa with my arms wrapped around my wife, and I'd awaken to loving kisses from a dog reunited with its long-absent owner. But in that moment, sitting there by the fireplace, all I could do was cry. I buried my face in Emma's chest as my tears soaked through her shirt. "What is it, April? What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing," I croaked. "Nothing. They're tears of joy."